Sorry, folks, just give us a few more minutes. No, and I don't have Wi-Fi right now either, if it makes you feel better.
Okay, mine's bad.
I'm just Josh. Is it back?
Yep, it's fast.
Yeah, we need it.
Could you just tell us how long Trade Talks went today? In terms of hours? Time?
Let me look at what time I texted you guys that they started and what time I texted you that they ended. Let's see. So talks began at 12:10 today, and they concluded at 5:46. There was a lunch break.
Can't hear you. Can you speak louder?
Talks began today at 12:10 and concluded at 5:46 p.m., and I can confirm that, yes, there was a lunch break.
What did we have?
I think I had a salad. There might have been feta cheese in it. I hope that's fun color.
Should have been good Swedish salmon.
There was no salmon. It was, I think I've mostly lived on coffee myself.
The Swedes have good coffee, so you can do worse.
It's no better for me up here, if it makes you feel any better. I'm a little jealous of those of you without neckwear on right now, if I'm being totally honest. Afraid that might be beyond the scope of my abilities as a man standing in front of a microphone. See if we can ask somebody.
Maybe it's just sustainability may not exist. You can ask. I'd be very curious.
I actually would be curious as well. Perhaps I should ask. I think maybe they're now looking into the air conditioning.
Oh yeah, I could use some of that.
I'm really hopeful because I see vents. I don't feel vents, but I can see
You're
vents. Oh. Lovely hosts. Let's go see if I can talk. I suppose I can confirm that the air conditioning is on right now.
It is.
I don't feel it either.
That's a conk out.
Don't manifest things like that. I am told that they are coming shortly, everyone. So, for those of you who've put your cameras into sleep mode, great, and here they come.
Hi. Good afternoon. I'll make a brief statement, then take some questions. We had a very fulsome 2 days with the Chinese delegation led by Vice Premier Ho Yifeng. It was our third meeting. I'm happy to say that London built on Geneva, Stockholm built on London and Geneva. I think we had great momentum going into the meeting thanks to the president's trade deals. I think that the Chinese were surprised by the magnitude of the Japan deal, by the magnitude and the terms of the European deal. So I think that they're never compliant, but I believe that they were in more of a mood for a wide-ranging discussion. The discussion centered on the two economies. We had a very in-depth report on them on the Chinese economy. We gave a very detailed report on the U.S. economy. We talked about the trade deals that we were doing with other countries. We expressed our concern about Chinese overcapacity globally and what that might mean for this year, for the next few years. We expressed our concern for their purchases of sanctioned Iranian oil, of which they buy about 90%. We also expressed our regret that we believe that they had sold Russia about 15 billion of dual-use technologies. But the overall tone of the meetings was very constructive, and I will pass it over to Ambassador Greer.
Thank you. We also reiterated the premise of the President's trade program and trade policy, which is to reduce U.S. deficits, increase manufacturing, and reshore our economy. We made sure that they understood that these are the goals of what the President's trying to do. And again, we expressed our satisfaction that many of our major trading partners have come along with this. President von der Leyen on Turnberry on Sunday, when I was there, she specifically mentioned that the U.S.-EU deal is about rebalancing and trying to rectify the giant EU surplus with us. And so we've been happy to be working so constructively with many of our partners. And we had that kind of a discussion with the Chinese as well. And of course, we were here, in the first purpose to confirm the implementation of what was agreed in London in terms of accelerating the flow of rare earth magnets from China to U.S. companies. And then we were able to discuss further how to make sure that the entire U.S. supply chain, including those that go through third countries, could be accelerated. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would say on a personal level, we've developed great respect. Ambassador Greer knows several of their team from the first administration. And again, I think it was the level of momentum and the entire reordering that President Trump has done of the global trading system. So now here you have the two largest economies in negotiation. And as I've said before, and we reiterated to them, we don't want to decouple. We just need to de-risk with certain strategic industries, whether it's the rare earth, semiconductors, medicines, and we talked about what we could do together to get into balance within the relationships. Ambassador Greer has made the fantastic point that for decades the U.S. trading system sacrificed manufacturing for to be able to sell, whether it was ag or natural resources, and now under President Trump, as you've seen with the Japan deal, with the Europe deal, we are able to do both. We are able to reshore manufacturing and also do substantial purchase agreements of U.S. ag and energy.
Great. All right, let's turn to the room, please. Let's start up front.
Good afternoon. Jamie Keaton, Associated Press. We had Li Changgang speaking to reporters shortly after the end of the talks today, and he mentioned an extension of the pause. Can you give us some details on that, how long that's going to go on for, and how will it work? And if I could just throw in another one, what do you say to lawmakers in the United States and others who are concerned that concessions on export control on items like chips for AI will jeopardize U.S. national security interests?
Well, I'll take the national security question, and then Jameson could talk about the pause. Look, we are very diligent in terms of the national security. Things go through the interagency at the White House, whether it's Treasury, it's NSC, it's Commerce, it's DOD, so that there's nothing that's being exchanged for anything. I think you might be referring to the NVIDIA H20s, which are well down their technology chip stack.
Great.
And I would say, I should also say the only export controls we talked about today were Chinese export controls on rare earths. Just U.S. export controls were not something we discussed. With respect to a potential pause, we're going to head back to Washington, D.C., and we're going to talk to the president about whether that's something that he wants to do. It's certainly something that's been under discussion, and so we'll brief the president on the outcome of this, and we'll see if there are any. We have further technical discussions that are happening right now as we speak among the teams, and so the president can make a final call on whether that's something that he wants to do.
Decision made today.
Not on our side.
Great. Next question, Jenny.
One for each of you. Secretary Besson, you just said again Secretary Besson, you just said again that the biggest problem in the relationship is China's overcapacity and that you want them to move towards a new consumption-based economy. What's your specific plan for addressing those economic imbalances besides purchases of U.S. goods? And then do you want me to go to Jameson now? Sorry, Ambassador. Okay. And then obviously the Section 232 investigations that the president is set to unveil in the coming weeks on pharmaceuticals and semiconductors would theoretically hit China after as well as everyone else in the world. After your talks today, will those tariffs be imposed on the Chinese, or did you make any commitments to pause them or not target the Chinese specifically with those actions? And then what would you say is the biggest concessions that the Chinese have had to make in these talks so far?
I'll just repeat that China is the most imbalanced economy in modern times. And I think we are they're 30% of global manufacturing. They have a 2% current account surplus of global GDP, which we've never seen before, or probably not since the 1870s with the British Empire, and that's not sustainable. So the tariff levels will have quite a bit to do with that. And I think the other thing that we're seeing is that President Trump was very early on talking about the China problem. The U.S. experienced the China shock when China came into the WTO in the early 2000s, but Europe, a lot of the European business model, it was quite a business model, was predicated on cheap Russian energy, a depressed exchange rate because of the Southern European countries dragging down the euro, and then selling goods into China. And now that China has jiu-jitsu'd the model, and under the cover of COVID, rather than increasing their consumer, they upped their export capacity, and they did it quite a bit up the value chain. So, we'll see over time. But my guess is that over time, that the other economies, developed economies, will start increasing their tariff barriers, and the global South, they just can't absorb all this Chinese production.
I would say also, when you ask about what tools can be used to deal with this, I mean, this is part of the reason why the president implemented his tariff program. Right now, if you look at the numbers, we're still tracking an annual trade deficit with China. But if you extrapolate it out from the numbers we have so far it looks like it's going to be at least $50 billion smaller this year. So that's some progress already. With respect to the Section 232, this came up during discussions. The Chinese asked us about it. What's the plan? What's the timing? We shared what information we could. You've heard President Trump talk about this publicly, which includes discussion of having a situation where you start with a lower tariff, but then you go to a higher tariff at some point to try to bring back manufacturing of pharmaceuticals or semiconductors. These are global actions. They don't target the Chinese. They don't target any particular country. They'll be applied globally. There aren't any exceptions or exemptions for particular countries.
And what's the biggest concession they've made?
That the Chinese have made? Well, I would say they blocked all of their rare earth magnets, and now we're getting them.
Great. Next question, please, Gavin.
Thank you both for being here. I'm just wondering if we can get some clarity on the tariff level that is threatened to happen on April 12th. I know the April 2nd tariffs were 34%. You add that to the fentanyl, 54%. That's where the tariffs are for many goods right now. So what is the overall threat to the Chinese in terms of a tariff level that could happen if there is no extension?
Well, I think you've seen, I've used the word boomerang, so if we boomerang back to the April 2nd level, they would go to 34. I noticed, as the earlier question said, that the Chinese deputy minister did say that we had agreed on a pause. We have not. Nothing is agreed until we speak with President Trump. He's on Air Force One, I believe, doing a press conference right now, and we will be seeing him in the Oval tomorrow to go over the deal with him, and then he'll decide if the pause continues as is.
And just to be clear, Gavin, the president has discretion to change the rate depending on the circumstances that we have, et cetera. So while the snapback rate would be 34%, he, of course, has discretion under the law to modify that.
Yeah, my question is just the 34% is under the tariff level that's current for many goods. So would that be additive to what we have already? Would it be on top? Okay.
Yes.
So we're talking about the threat is that tariffs kind of in like the 80-85% level?
Yeah, depending on the product. Yeah.
Depending on the product.
Yeah,
okay.
but just kind of to tamp down that rhetoric. The meetings were very constructive. We're just that we haven't given the sign off.
Gotcha.
Great. Thank you. Next question, please. Yes.
Melissa Eddy from the New York Times. Melissa Eddy from the New York Times. Can you tell us, please, did you discuss a potential summit between the Chinese and U.S. the Chinese president and President Trump? And can you give us any timeline on what you're thinking about in terms of that?
No, the only thing we discussed was there was a recent phone call between the two leaders. On that call, President Xi invited President Trump to Beijing, but we didn't discuss that at all. What we discussed was implementing the desire of the two leaders for the trade team and the Treasury team to have trade negotiations with our Chinese counterparts. So our meetings were just to implement the will of the leaders, not to discuss if there would be a meeting.
Can you just give a time? When was that call? Do you have it on hand?
I think that was the June call, right?
Yeah, was it?
It was June 4th or 5th.
June 4th or 5th.
Thank you.
Great. Right behind.
Hi, Clara from Jägerfeld, Channel 4 Sweden. You've also met with the Swedish government. What topics did you discuss?
We discussed a wide range of topics. First of all, we want to thank the government for the fantastic venue here. Very, very good to be in Stockholm in July. And we discussed the EU deal with the U.S., of which the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister were very supportive. The Finance Minister and I had met previously during World Bank and IMF Week in D.C. We discussed the importance of getting back to basics with the multilateral development banks. We discussed the Swedish economy and how things are going, how important trade is.
Yeah, we also talked about the huge success in U.S.-EU relations over the past few weeks with the recent NATO summit, where all parties agreed to increase defense spending, and Sweden is a big part of that. And so we talked about Sweden's defense establishment. And then, of course, we also talked about the EU deal and how important that was for both sides to reach that. We also talked about U.S.-Sweden trade. We talked about automobiles made in Sweden. We talked about stainless steel. We talked about ag products like onions and carrots. We learned all about Swedish agricultural production, which is really interesting. So it was a very productive discussion, and we're grateful again for our Swedish hosts for helping us here.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, when I have spoken to experts regarding the EU-US deal, some have said that it feels secure that there is a deal, but that you still can be a little bit unsure if it would change. What do you have to say to that?
Oh no! Right now we have I have texts from some of my European counterparts about making sure the details are correct and fully put on paper. So we feel very confident about it, and it's truly a solid path forward for our two countries.
Thank you.
Yep, and I think the other thing that we discussed that's very interesting is the unintended consequence of President Putin's invasion of Ukraine is bringing in Finland and Sweden into NATO, and we discussed the historic reputation of the Swedish military and how good it was to have them in NATO.
Great. All right, next question. We'll go one more behind. Sir.
Cao Jie from Phoenix TV, Hong Kong. I believe you discussed a range of topics with your China counterpart in these 2 days. But compared to Geneva and London, do you think is there any questions or issues are becoming tougher and toughest to negotiate? And as you mentioned that the U.S. is trying to convince China not to keep buying the oil, gas from Russia or Iran, will be the kind of new conditioner for the future round of the talk between U.S. and China. And also, I want to know, since U.S. government has pushed the tariff globally to say push the tariff to a very high peak since 1930, as some newspapers said. But so both of you, do you think it will be concerned by the U.S. people about the potential inflation pressure and also the local economy? Do you believe will it be more or less slow the economy for the U.S.?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, so I'll work backwards. I was a professor of economic history at Yale, and I can tell you it's my belief that as many people have a misunderstanding that the downturn in the 1930s was caused by an increase in tariffs. It wasn't. The stock market crashed in 1929. There was also a very large tax increase in the U.S. We just did the largest tax cut in history. The U.S. economy is starting to fire on all cylinders right now. We actually, in May, saw the biggest downturn in inflation in 4 years. So the U.S. economy is doing quite well. And I will tell you, rather than the talks getting more difficult, I actually think that they are getting more engaged. There was a in Geneva, very narrow issue with the magnets. In London, the talks went to a wider aperture. And here, we're able to discuss more and more things. This report that we gave each other on the economies, on the outlook. So I would say it's just the opposite. The purpose of meeting frequently is to have personal relationships, have understandings, and show respect and mutual cooperation. I think Jameson, Ambassador Greer, has been dealing with the Chinese much longer than I have.
Yes, I have. No other comments, though.
Okay, great. I'll take the next question. Let's come back up front. Dave Lauder, Reuters. Careful with the boom mic.
Hi, thanks. Secretary, question about Russian oil. As you know, the president has threatened possible tariffs on countries that continue to buy Russian oil 100%. China is the largest purchaser of that commodity. What was your message to the Chinese about Russian oil? Did you tell them they're on notice, they need to start to pull back?
Well, we described, it's not just the president, what is making its way through the U.S. Senate, and hard to imagine anything could get 80 or 90 bipartisan votes in the U.S. Senate, is a bill that will give the president discretion to apply secondary tariffs on sanctioned Russian oil from, I believe it's from 0 to 500%. I believe he's used 100%. And we've heard from several of our European counterparts, NATO allies, even Canada. Well, Canada is in NATO. That they will be following on that. So we would expect most of the Western alliance that has been supporting Ukraine to follow on that. So I think anyone who buys sanctioned Russian oil should be ready for this.
What was their response to that warning?
The Chinese take their sovereignty very seriously. We don't want to impede on their sovereignty, so they'd like to pay 100% tariff. But
Great. We have time for just about one or two more. Ma'am.
Hi, my name is Clara Matsdotter. I'm from Affärsvärlden. I'm just wondering, you've been described as a global macro veteran and you run a hedge fund. In this moment, where would you put your money if you were still running one?
United States of America.
Only?
Sorry.
Okay. And could you just give us some insight on your current macro view outside of the US as well?
Well, we're seeing the euro's appreciated quite a bit this year, and the currency theory would tell you that when you get a fiscal impulse, you see that, and we've seen a big fiscal impulse coming from Europe, especially from Germany. So, and we're also going to see quite a bit more spending. With China, we are seeing that they are in disinflation. They have a real estate problem. They have a very large current account surplus. As I said, it's about 2% of global GDP. And the Chinese currency is a very difficult currency. It's probably in three different equilibria. You have the currency is cheap. You have 1.4 billion people who want to get their money out of China but aren't allowed to. And then you also have the threat of, will the Chinese give you your money back in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years if you put it in? And then, I think we are seeing the trade deals are having, contrary to the gloom, doom, and boom, pessimism that we saw at the beginning of April, that the trade deals have had little effect on the economy, and that the U.S. economy is accelerating. And this year, the U.S. is going to take in probably a minimum of $300 billion of tariff income, which will bring, that's 1% in terms of the GDP. So I think we could substantially bring down our deficit to GDP.
And also, finally, when you come back and speak to Donald Trump about this tariff pause, how prolonged will it be?
I'm sorry.
If it goes the way that China just told us right before you came here?
I think typically we talked about 90 days.
90 days more.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Guys, that's about it. He's going to have to get to his next engagement. So thank you so much for coming, everyone. And if you have any additional questions, please direct them to U.S. Embassy Stockholm, where they can put you in touch with us at the Treasury or U.S. Trade Representative. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
There we go.